Hey everybody, welcome back to my Activators Guide series. So today's going to be episode 4, which is preparing to activate. So we're going to start out here in the woods. We're just going to take a look at the kit that I'm wearing on my back. Now this is sort of the minimum amount of kit that I would bring out in the woods. Obviously, if you were doing a drive-up activation, this is going to be a little bit different, but a lot of the ones I do are hike-in. So I'm going to show you just kind of the minimum kit I would use for a hike-in activation. We'll talk about some of the things I use for my drive-in activations. Let me get my ground sheet down here because the ground is very wet. It's been raining a lot lately. Now, I'm not actually going out to do an activation today. I'm kind of filming in between rain showers. The kit that I'm going to show you today was the one I was actually going to use last weekend until I got rained out. Now, if I was going to do an activation today, this would not be the kit I'd be bringing with me, because the radio I've got with me, the highest band that it works on is 20 meters. And 10 meters is on fire today. So if I was going out to do an activation today, I'd be bringing a radio that could do 10 meters. So let me just kind of go through this pack here. Let me get things kind of situated. So this pack is a Hill People Gear Tarahumara. This is my favorite backpack for light stuff. If I was going to do like a hike-in activation or a hike-up SOTA activation, it wasn't crazy, this would be the kit I would bring, assuming the weather was gonna be conducive to a kit like this. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll go through this pack. I'm not going to take everything out of everywhere. I'm just going to talk about what's in here. I will open up the radio kit. We'll talk about that briefly. You saw I had my sit pad attached to the bottom of my pack there. That's where it normally lives, so I can get it real easy. This piece of 500E Cordura that's on the ground is actually something that I slide into the back pocket of this pack. I have it out at the moment. But let's go ahead and go through the contents of this pack. And we'll talk about some of the stuff you should bring. All right. Now, I'm a big advocate of the 2 is 1, 1 is none philosophy. I don't have doubles of a lot of stuff in this right now, but I would always have doubles back in my vehicle. So if I didn't have stuff with me, worst comes to worst, I could hike back out and get stuff. Normally when I'm hiking in, and I know I'm going to be hiking in a ways, I will bring a spare rig with me. Usually it's a True SDX. Got dirt all over the place out here. It's muddy. It'll normally be my True SDX. I don't have that in here today, but on the outside of the pack, I've got a Grail Ultra Press titanium with a Snow Peak titanium cup nested on it. That's my water solution. I do have other water with me a little bit. This time of year, I don't generally bring a lot of water with me because water's abundant around here. And it's not hot, so I'm not drinking a ton. On the other side, I have a Nalgene flask with 14 ounces of water in it. Attached to the pack, as always, I've got a tourniquet. I've talked about that before. I've got my Garmin InReach Mini and a piece of just paracord so I can sling my pack up in a tree if I want to. This pouch in the back is where the 500D we're sitting on lives. And you saw I had my Thermarest sit pad attached to the bottom of the pack here. So let's go ahead and get into the main compartment here. We'll talk about what I've got in here. And again, I set this pack up to do an activation last weekend, and then I got rained out, so I didn't do it. So I've got, right on top, I've got my food bag. There's not a lot in here. I've just got some paper towels. I've got some electrolytes, some snacks, some coffee, things like that, a garbage bag. Nothing crazy, right? I'm not going out all day, so that's just some snacks. And here's the radio kit. We'll go through this bag in a minute. I've also got in here a Shimag. I find that's useful for a lot of things. A battery bank, all my emergency stuff, a little dry bag, a small fixed blade knife, and this is Wilderness Innovation PSSLE ultralight poncho. I've also got a Ridgeline kit in here and some Dyneema whoopee slings to set this up as a hammock if I want to. So that's kind of what's in my pack. But let's go through the radio kit. Oh, these Blue Jays are loud. Let's go through this radio kit and take a look at what's inside. So I'm going to set you guys up on the ground here. Hopefully this cooperates. All right. So this bag is nice. This is made by Kafaru. This is water resistant. It's not completely waterproof, but it's water resistant. Inside is my sort of bare minimum radio kit that I would bring with me. So inside this is my Bamatech TP3. All right. We've got mechanical pencil to log with. We've got 15 feet of RG316. I've got my throw bag we've talked about before with the Velcro closure on top, and inside is my throw line. If I'm going light, I'm not bringing an actual throw weight, right? Those throw weights are a minimum 8 ounces. If I don't have to carry half a pound, I won't. This will get the job done in a pinch. This is sort of my ultralight setup. You've seen this in other kits as well. If I'm not going to be carrying it a long ways, I'll bring an actual Weaver throw weight. I've got a Talent Cell battery. I have a Right in the Rain pad to log on. My antenna, it's a 40, 20, 15, and 10 end-fed half wave. I have inside this little pouch, I've got a whole bunch of stuff. I've got my spark plug end-fed. I have headphones. I've got a little speaker. I've got the power cords for my rig, and I have a little retractable cable for my CW key. I've got the radio itself, which is an MTR-4B. I've got a 3D printed cover on it. If I can get it off of there. All right, so we've got our MTR-4B. And again, if I was going to do an activation today, this would not be the radio I'd be bringing, because like I said, 10 meters is absolutely on fire. I've worked more DX in the past 2 days than I have in the rest of the year. It's been crazy. And I'm talking like, you know, Eastern Europe 599 plus 10 kind of signals. So this probably wouldn't be the radio I'd bring today. I'd probably do like my KX2 maybe, or my TX500. But last weekend, the higher bands weren't in the shape they are right now. This would have been good. I would have run on 20. And then finally in here, I've got the manual for the radio. I like to bring the manual with me because I have so many radios, and I use some of them so infrequently that I don't always remember all of the settings. If you're using the same radio over and over again, you may not need this, but I like to bring that with me. So that's the entire radio kit. All right, it's everything I need, right? I've got my logging solution, my throw weight, my key, my coax, my antenna, my battery, all my cables, my headphones, my end-fed half-wave transformer, the rig itself, the manual. So I've got everything I need to do a complete activation. Now, obviously, if you're doing an activation, a drive-up activation, you can carry a lot more stuff. You know, if you're running a QRO rig, you're going to have some other things you're going to need to bring with you. You're probably going to bring a bigger antenna. You're going to be bringing a bigger battery, bigger coax, all that stuff. But the idea is the same. This is sort of the bare minimum I need to do an activation, and everything I need to do the activation lives in this little pack, okay? And you saw that all fit in that little tiny Hill People gear. I think these are 15 or 17 liters. They're not very big. All right, but everything I need for the day lives in that pack. So that just gives you an idea of what I pack as a bare minimum. Now, a lot of times, if you watch, for instance, the activation I did at Jenksville State Forest, where in fact the old version of this antenna got broken by a tree falling on it, you'll see I'm running a little bit bigger pack. I'm running a Hill People Gear Connor version 2, and I've got a Big Agnes folding stool and a Big Agnes table with me. I run a bigger pack that can carry more load if I'm carrying that kind of stuff in. But if I'm doing one where I'm going to sit on the ground like I am right now, so like if you watch when I use my little SW3B kit at Oakley Corners, I'm running the same bag. You'll see I just set up on the ground. I set everything up in front of me, and I run right from the ground. So you can do that too. It kind of depends on how you plan on activating. But like I said, I just wanted to show you the bare minimum I would bring with me when I'm doing an activation. Obviously, you may differ. You may want more stuff with you. You may not care about all the other stuff that I have with me. You might just bring the radio kit, walk into the woods 50 feet, and go to town. Right, this would be if I'm walking in a couple miles and I'm going to hang out in the woods for a while. I'd bring all this other ancillary stuff with me, right? The shelter, my emergency stuff, a way to get water, all those kinds of things you probably wouldn't need if you're just going, like if I was just going to go, you know, in a little ways and do play some radio, I wouldn't need obviously shelter and all that stuff with me probably, because I'd be so close to my vehicle. But like I said, this was actually the setup I was going to use for last weekend until the sky opened up on me. So I'm going to pack this stuff up before it starts raining again. And then we're going to head inside and we're going to take a look at some of the other things you really need to consider before you go out and do your activation. Sorry about the cable. I don't mean to hang that in front of you guys. It happens every once in a while. I try to tuck it out of the way and then it pops back in frame. So at any rate, like I said, let me pack this stuff back up. We'll hop inside, we'll hop on the computer, and we'll look at some of the other things that you want to consider before you go out and do your activation. So we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so we're back in the shack now. We're gonna hop over to my computer and take a look at some of the things you need to consider before you go out and activate. But like I said, when I said 10 meters was on fire, I wasn't kidding. I mean, it's insane. Absolutely nuts. So, yeah, if you're trying to work DX right now, it is amazing. So anyway, like I said, let's hop over to the computer here. Let's take a look at some of the things that you need to consider before you go out and actually do your activation. So let me go ahead and hop into my computer. I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so we're in my shack now. We're at the computer. And we're going to take a look at some of the things I kind of look at when I go to do an activation before I go out. And sometimes I check all of these. Sometimes I only check a few of them. It kind of depends on what I'm doing. So this is called vocap. This gives us predictions for what the chances are to make a contact on any given band. So you can set over on the right-hand side here, you can set your mode. I'm on CW. I'm currently running 100 watts out of this radio. You can set your antennas. So I've got it all set up for a dipole for me. I'm running an end-fed random wire. The closest thing I can get is a dipole. I'm up about 10 meters. The last station I worked was OE3A in Austria. All right, so that's their station. There's me. So if I come over here to prop wheel, this will show me what my propagation is like, what my chances of making a contact are like. So I was on 10 meters, and that was a couple hours ago, so that was probably 1,300. You can see they're saying I have about a 50% chance, 53% chance of making that contact. Today, that was pretty much 100% contact. We were 599 both ways. So this, you got to take this one with a grain of salt sometimes, but if you're trying to plan ahead and you want an idea for what the propagation is going to look like, that gives you an idea. You can see right now it's 1,500 and change, so I'd probably be good on 10 meters, 12 meters, 15 meters, 17 meters, 20. It starts to get a little bit worse. Anything lower than 20 meters isn't going to happen, okay? You can see a little bit later in the day here, so like 15 meters looks like it's going to be pretty good a little bit later in the day. So this kind of gives you just sort of an idea of what your chances of making that contact are like. And like I said, I mean, if I hover over 10 meters at 1,300, which is about when I made that contact, it says I have a 53% chance. All right, like I said, today it was a 100% chance. 10 meters is insane right now. But it just sort of gives you an idea. Now, the thing that I will always check is the reverse beacon network. So if you're not familiar with the RBN, it will show you spots for calls. It'll show you spots for all sorts of different things. What I'm actually going to do is I'll show you how this works. So I'm currently on 10 meters. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call K2EJT's. If somebody answers, awesome, we'll work them in real time. But if not, you're going to see my spots pop up here on the screen. So let me just make sure that frequency is clear. Hopefully you guys can hear that side tone. I'll turn it up a little bit just to make sure you guys can hear it. All right, I think we're clear. So I'm going to go ahead and call CQ a couple times. So I'll call again. I hit. So now if you watch my screen here, you see how this was yellow and now it's fading. When that turns yellow again, you're going to see all my spots. So we'll see in real time what 10 meters is like from my station right here. I'm running 100 watts. When I do this before I go, oh, there you go. Before I go out in the field, I'll turn my radio down to 5 watts and call CQ, and I'll call out every band that I might run just to give me an idea of what propagation is like. Okay, now this will probably hit again here in a minute. It takes this respots after 1 minute, and you'll probably see that we end up with more spots. But you can see right now, 10 meters, I'm getting down into Costa Rica, out to California, up to Iceland. I'm getting into Scandinavia and into the middle of Europe. All right, like I said, 10 meters has been absolutely insane today. There you go. It's like a fire hose to Europe. Okay, so that just gives you an idea what your propagation looks like in real time. So like I said, before I go out and do an activation, I normally will turn this down to 5 watts because that's what I run. And I'll call CQ twice on every band that I normally am going to run just to see what propagation is like. Now, understand that that can change, but at least it gives you a rough idea as to, what propagation is going to look like for that band. And I'll put links to all these things in the video description below. So this is HFDX view. So it shows you a real-time map of what the propagation looks like for any given band based on your grid square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to click on my grid square, which is FN12. All right. So I'm going to click on FN12. So now you can see right here it says perspective FN12. And I'm going to zoom out, and it's going to show you based on my grid square what propagation is going to look like across the world. So there's 40 meters. There's 30 meters. All right, if you hover over it, it'll tell you CW and digital. There's 14 meters, or sorry, 14 megahertz, so that's 20 meters. 17 meters. 15 meters, and you can see, all right, it shows a CW, SSB, and digital. You hover over it to tell you. There's 12 meters. There's 10 meters. Look at 10 meters. That's insane. 6 meters. And then it's going to show you your MUF, your maximum usable frequency. All right. You can see in my case, it's going to be 28. All right. Because 10 meters is insane right now. This map actually shows us our maximum usable frequency. All right. So if I, and this is in real time, so this will move throughout the day. So if I zoom in here, you can see I'm in New York here. So you can see my MUF is like 38. All right. Like I said, the bands are insane today. And you can see that it's wide open all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. And I've been working Europe all day, today and yesterday. It's been insane. But this gives you a really good idea of what your maximum usable frequency is. Conversely, what's our minimum? All right, so my minimum frequency is about 12 megahertz. All right, so this, I usually check this beforehand just to see what the lowest band I can run is and what the highest band I can run is. I also normally check our space weather. All right, so before I go out, I'll see what the current space conditions look like. You know, we'll look at our A and K indexes. We'll look at our solar flare index, our sunspot numbers. And I'll take a look at this graph and see what the solar conditions look like. If you need information about solar conditions and how they affect ham radio, there are all sorts of videos. There's all sorts of websites you can go to. That's kind of out of the scope of this video. But I will often check this particular website, Solar Ham, because it gives you all the information in one place. This is really nice because it shows us our absorption. All right, so if I click on this guy, it'll show us what's being attenuated. All right, and you can see right now conditions are fantastic. Now in the summer, this was just a red blob. Everything was being attenuated. The bands were horrible over the summer. And you'd check this and it'd be a red blob every day. All right, now solar conditions are way better and the bands are showing it. People often check this chart. You'll see it in a lot of places. This is just QRZ. All right. I would take this with a grain of salt. So like right now it tells me that 10 meters is fair. 10 meters is not fair right now. 10 meters is on fire. Now keep in mind, this is out of Boulder, Colorado. So if we look at what's our MUF in Colorado, it's pretty high there too. So again, you got to take this one with a grain of salt, but you can check it. All right, so those are some of the ways I check my solar condition, or sorry, not my solar conditions, my band conditions. A lot of times before I go out, maybe the day before, I'll check VOACAP just to kind of give me an idea of what the predictions are as far as what bands are going to be like. I always, before I go out, hit the reverse beacon network. I'll always turn the power down to whatever I'm going to run on the field, and I'll call CQ on the bands I'm going to run just to see what propagation looks like. I will normally check this as well just to give me an idea of what those bands look like in real time. And this is real time, so this changes in real time. Same thing with our MUF and our FOF2. I always check my space weather before I go out. All right, so those are the things I always check before I go out, with the exception of VOACAP. I don't always check that. But like I said, if I'm going to go out and do, especially if I'm going to do a longer activation, like if I'm going to be camping, I'll look at what the next few days propagation is predicted to look like and go from there. The rest of them I check pretty much every time I go out. I always hit the RBN. I always check my HF band conditions. I always check my solar conditions. Right? So those are things I always check. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to hop over and we're going to take a look at how to actually schedule your activation. All right. So I'm actually going to jump over to Parks on the Air first, and we'll take a look at that. And then we will take a look at Summits on the Air. So I will be back in just a minute. Okay, so we're back. So let's take a look at scheduling. So if you're going to run CW or digital, it's really a good idea to schedule your activation. It's not a bad idea even if you're going to run single sideband, but it's especially a good idea because on CW and digital, because if you schedule it ahead of time, you'll be spotted by the reverse beacon network. You don't have to worry about spotting yourself. Now, we will talk about spotting in the next episode where we talk about actually doing the activation. Okay, so let's just talk about how to schedule an activation. So we'll start on Parks on the Air. So I'm logged in. You can see I'm logged in as me here. So if I come over to the hamburger menu on the left-hand side, we click that, and you click Add Activation. All right. You put your call sign in, put your reference. So let's suppose I was going to do Oakley Corners, K5221. It's going to tell you that's Oakley Corners State Forest. You'd pick your start date. So let's say I wanted to do today or tomorrow. Let's say I wanted to do next Saturday. All right. Pick a start date and a start time. This is going to be in Zulu, right? So this is going to be UTC. So we're going to go, let's suppose we want to do 8 a.m. So we'll go 1200. All right, we end our activation. Let's say I'm going to end the same day. We'll do 4 hours. So we'll do 1600. Frequency, you can put whatever you want in here. I usually just say what bands I'm going to run. So 40, 30, 20. And then in comments, I'm going to say CW, QRP. Whoops. And then when I was done, I would click Save. Now, I'm not going to actually save this because I'm not going out to do that activation right now. All right. Once I click Save, it will go into this activations area. So if I click activations, these are all the activations that are currently scheduled. Now, they are in alphabetical order, alphanumeric order. So you start with numbers first, and you can scroll down and see all the different activations that are scheduled. All right. And if you look at these, so like this is Germany, it tells you where they're going to be, frequency to be announced, single sideband, and FT8. All right. So again, this is Germany as well, to be determined as far as frequency, CW, SSB, and digital. So you're going to run all three modes. All right. And if you scroll down here, there's France, Great Britain, Italy, Japan. So here's Thomas Witherspoon. All right. So Thomas, you can see he's at Kilo 4473. No frequency information because he's running all sorts of different ones. No spot information. He's got it scheduled for the whole weekend. All right, he's got it scheduled for 2 days because he's camping right now. So he's at that spot and he doesn't know when he's going to activate or what frequency he's going to activate, things like that. He's been on the air a lot the past couple of days. But you can come in here and look and see if there are any activations scheduled. If you're looking for a specific activator, they'll be in here, or a specific park, you can find them in here. Like I said, these will all be in alphabetical order or alphanumeric order. Okay, so that is the Parks on the Air activation page. All right, SOTA's similar. We go to sotawatch.org, and you can add a spot. So if I just want to spot myself, I can. Again, we'll talk about adding spots in the next video. But if I want to add an alert, I click alert. So these are all my current active spots. Okay, but if I click alerts, I can add an alert, and this will do the same thing. So I put my call sign in, my association. Let's suppose it's going to be me. Let's suppose I'm going to do W2, and let's say I'm going to do GC112, which is Overlook Mountain. All right. Date of the activation, estimated time, again in UTC, frequency. So they're going to want, as opposed to bands here, they're going to want you to give, for instance, like 7.025 or things like that. You don't need to be specific. I usually just do 7.14, so on and so forth. Down in the comments, you can put a lot of things down here. One of the things in the comments that I like to do is SOTA, I think, gives you a half an hour before, an hour after your scheduled activation, I think is what it is, but don't quote me on that. You can add down in the comments. So like if you look right here, I've got S-1, S+4. If I put that in the comments, that will trigger the reverse beacon or the reverse beacon network to spot me an hour before I have it scheduled, up to 4 hours after I have it scheduled. Okay, so you can change this to whatever you want. That way you're not relying on, I think it's a half an hour before and an hour after. I think that's right, but don't quote me on that. But SOTA is a lot more particular about their spotting times. So if you want a wide window, you're going to put that down here in your comments. Okay, so let's suppose I wanted to have 4 hours before and 4 hours after. I'd say S-4, S+4. So if I wanted to make my activation for, let's say, 8 a.m. local, and that'd be 1200 UTC, I'd put 1200 here. All right. So this would go all the way from 0800 all the way to 1600 UTC. Okay. Because I have an S+4, S-4. Otherwise, you're just going to have a very narrow window to activate from. All right. So I'm going to close this because, again, I don't want to spot myself because I'm not currently activating a summit, but this will show you all your scheduled activations. All right. So you can see these go by time, and you can see all the different activations scheduled. And again, if you're operating single sideband or not single sideband, if you're operating CW or FT8 or some other mode that's going to hit the reverse beacon network, it's really good to spot yourself here because once you've activated, you will be automatically spotted. So like when I go out, if I don't have cell service, as long as I have scheduled my activation, I just go ahead and call CQ. And as soon as I hit the reverse beacon network, it automatically spots me on Parks on the Air or Summits on the Air or wherever I have my activation scheduled. Okay, so that kind of just gives you a rundown of how to schedule an activation both on Parks on the Air and on Summits on the Air. All right, so our next video will be the activation itself. So we'll look at how to spot yourself, how to set up your activation site, how to actually call CQ, what to do once those calls start coming in. We'll look at some different logging software, how to log, how to upload logs, all those different kinds of things. So with that being said, I really appreciate everybody watching. Hopefully you found it a little bit informative. This one's a little shorter. I just wanted to briefly show you some of the things that I look at before I go out and do an activation. So with that being said, I will see you on the next one. And until then, thank you so much for watching. 7-3.